Hi everyone, I wanted to do a special video on something that's been on my mind lately that has to do with old music and new music. Not necessarily a competition, although it's probably going to come off something like that in this video, but just basically inspired because I've been getting some comments from some people, that have their strong opinions about me and say when they watch my videos, they say, you're so ignorant to certain music and you're stuck in your bubble. Why don't you step outside your bubble and start finding some new stuff? There's a lot of great new stuff out there, and I want to address all that. I figured it was a good subject for a video. Well, here's the thing. Well, to start with, I'm not just a Beatles guy, Yeah, I got the shirt of John Lennon, brand new. How do you like it? I like it. It smells like the record store still. Got the smell on, just right out of the bag. And sure, I like the Beatles the best, and I pull no punches on that. I think they're the standard by which all other music must be judged. And there's a lot of people who disagree, but those people really, although they have the right to their opinion, they're not going to sway me. I have a lot of people who do agree with me. So, we all can't agree on the same thing. It would be a pretty boring world if we did. But my point is, I like other stuff too. And when we get to the subject of old music versus new music, that's where I have a certain feeling about me that something that pulls me to older music that is kind of lacking for me in today's climate for music, and I'll explain. I have a nephew. He's 22 years old. He's been in a couple of videos with me. His name's Alex, and Alex likes. You want to talk about somebody who's well-rounded? That guy likes everything from old blues music to today's music. He loves Jack White. Who's I think maybe his favorite. He likes the Beatles. He likes just all kinds of genres. He listens to everything. Okay, so I really respect that about him, and I think it's terrific. But he was over here not too long ago, and he gave me this album, The Black Keys. Wanted me to listen to it, and of course, like a lot of things, I have a huge back pile of things that I have to listen to. Also, he gave me some singles, and one of them was this one from, I guess, it's the newest album, Jack White, the Lazaretto album. Now, my nephew brought this new Jack White album over to my house and recently, and he played a couple of tracks for me, and I'm not lying when I say that I enjoyed everything I heard. My nephew has not yet brought over a new album that I said, oh, that's terrible. You see, anything he brought over, I've liked. But the thing for me is, having grown up so much with the Beatles and the solo Beatles, waiting for all four of their individual albums to be released, what has happened is, I've become kind of spoiled, if you will, by, in addition to liking the music, I also like the ambiance, the magic, the classic status. When I listen to a Beatles record or a solo Beatles record or Paul McCartney's brand new album from last year, I feel like I'm listening to something that matters. And I don't mean that's going to come across as condescending. I'm sorry. I know a lot of this is going to be that way. Just my opinion. It's not set in stone. But I just feel like I'm listening to something that's consequential, that means something by people who are important in history and part of the picture of the legend. And to me, in addition to enjoying the music, there's also that side enjoyment that's also there too. Now that goes along with not just the Beatles and solo Beatles, but Bob Dylan. I love Bob Dylan, and I listen to his stuff, and when I listen to Dylan, it's pretty different from the Beatles. People who say that I'm not able to get out of my bubble, you can't get much different than Dylan from the Beatles, right? And the thing about Dylan is, again, when I'm listening to his stuff, I feel like I'm listening to a legend, listening to an artist. Artist is a weak word. Everybody's an artist. Classic, something that was of consequence, that shaped the world. So that's going on too. I'm enjoying the music, but also at the same time I'm feeling like I'm involved in this kind of special magic and something of importance, you know, that I get with the Beatles, and I get with Dylan, and I get that with Elvis Presley. I mean, this is the king of rock and roll, as they call him. I mean, this is Elvis, you know. What more can you say? Elvis is worth listening to. Elvis is worth exploring, learning all this stuff. To a lesser degree, I personally feel the Rolling Stones, you know, they're one of the greats, and I love the Stones. Don't feel that they're kind of in the same class as the Beatles, but they're still classic rock, classic bad boy rock, and very much worth listening to and seeking out. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, you know. Recently, let's get some other things here I want to show. I've been, you know, this thing about stepping outside your bubble, your comfort zone. Well, recently I've discovered a brand new artist. Now, you want to take a complete circular turn, about face, from the Beatles? How about Johnny Cash? I love this album. I just played this album in its entirety for the first time. I'm just discovering Johnny Cash. Just starting to get into my 50s, and here I am finally listening to Johnny Cash. Great stuff. I don't like the albums where he narrates a lot and talks a lot, but the singing albums, great stuff. This is me stepping outside my comfort zone, trying something different. Is this brand new from 2014? No, it's not. It's old. But you know what? I have enough stuff from the old days to still discover. I mean, I just started to get into my 50s, as I said, and let's say I live another 20, 30 years. In that 20 or 30 years, I can be very, very comfortable just by discovering older artists. You know, there's a lot of people from like 1920 to 1984 or 5. That's a period I like. I mean, my favorite period is probably, if I have to narrow it, 1954 to 1984. That's a 30-year period. That's my personal favorite period. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud of that, and I enjoy it. Chuck Berry, another one of the greats. You know, they call Elvis the king of rock and roll. I've heard a joke where people have said, Chuck Berry is the true king of rock and roll. Elvis just stood in for the pictures. You know, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I love Elvis too, but I mean, Chuck Berry, one of the greats. I mean, 3-chord rock and roll classic. You have to listen to Chuck. Recently, I've been trying to get into more of Ray Charles. You know, I'm branching out, stepping out. I know some Ray Charles songs, but I've been buying some Ray Charles albums and really getting into it. I love Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly, one of the greats. You got to get into Holly. You know, again, I'm talking about stepping out. I mean, I recently bought this, Glenn Miller's Greatest Hits. It's pretty different from the Beatles, wouldn't you say? It's not rap. It's not hip hop. But it's something that I like. Why should I go for stuff I don't enjoy? We'll get to rap and hip hop in a little bit, which gets a lot of people upset. I don't know why. It's only my opinion. You're entitled to yours. I'm entitled to mine. People say I'm misinformed about rap, so let's go for it. I hate rap music, and sorry, that's just the way it is. I also hate opera. Okay, the two forms of music I can think of off the top of my head that I can't stand are opera and rap. I call rap crap without the C. You can't spell crap without rap. And I know that's going to offend a lot of people. Let the comments fly, as long as they're not too disrespectful and you know, they're intelligent. I'll leave them be and I won't delete them. But I just don't understand why I have to like rap. You know, people say, oh, you know, you haven't listened to all of it. You can't just listen to some rap. Today's rap is a lot different from the original rap. Look, I've heard enough rap in my life between going around MTV Raps, listening to people constantly driving by, blaring that garbage out of their cars. I mean, it's just garbage to me. You can say the same thing about the Beatles. That's your right. If you think they're garbage, fine. Though I'll laugh, but you know, sorry. I know I was gonna laugh a little bit in this video, but I mean, you know, and it's not music. You can tell me all you want how it's music. You can tell. To me, rap is not music, and I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of people who feel the same way, so it's okay. So I'll have people over here that hate my guts because I don't like rap and I think it's not music and it's junk, and there'll be people over there that'll be saying right on, and they like what I have to say. I don't really care, that's my feeling on it. Why do I have to get into it? I recently did a video about Kanye West. Well, a video about Paul McCartney supposedly collaborating with Kanye West on a future project. When it comes out, if it does come out, I will listen to it with an open mind. I mean, I have to listen to it because I'm a Beatles and solo Beatles completist, and I'm interested in anything Paul does. So I'll try to judge it fairly enough. I know, and believe it or not close-mindedly. I mean, we'll see what they can do with it. But generally speaking, my introduction to Kanye West was the concert for Sandy on 12/12/2012. And I couldn't believe, here comes this guy amidst all these great artists, these great legendary performers, rock artists and things from all these decades, the 60s, the 70s, and then he comes on here in a skirt with his microphone, yelling his stupid rap nonsense and spoiling the whole occasion. To me, he had no business being up there. Now, I'll tell you, somebody told me in the comment section somewhere that Kanye West has been around since the 1990s. You could have fooled me. I hadn't heard of him till Sandy 2012. That shows you how relevant he is. People are saying, oh, well, Kanye West is like the Beatles of today. Sorry. Oh, man. Oh, God. Kanye West is the Beatles of today. How come I've never heard of him? Until now? The only time I heard of him was on the Sandy concert. Well, I was waiting to see Paul McCartney, by the way, perform at Sandy, a true legend. And, this guy comes on here and stinks up the stage. Has no business being there. And I don't care if I'm ignorant. I'm not ignorant. I just bought Bo Diddley. Bo Diddley's a twister. Hey, you know what I mean? I like, if there's something's good, I'll like it. Let me just segue into something else here. People say I don't buy new albums. Here's an example of an album I bought in 2013, last year. Brand new album by a new artist, Jenny O. It's an album called Auto Mechanic. A lot of people haven't heard of Jenny O, and I understand that. But here's what happened with me. I was watching TV late at night last year sometime. I dozed off and I woke up. And as I woke up, there was a video or something on by this Jenny O. And I thought, this is really good. Who is this? And I saw her name at the end and I went and I bought the record. Okay? So, Jenny O is not the Beatles. Jenny O is not Elvis, But I stepped outside my box and I liked it. So if there's a new song or new music from modern era that I like, I'll go out and buy it. Only difference is, Jenny O, what's missing when I listen to this is, again, there's no feeling like, wow, this is that magic and the ambiance of who changed the world. And, oh man, for decades now, this person has been going on and making new music. It's good music, but it's in one ear and out the other and of no consequence, That's what happens. And that's why I'm probably not as into a rush for my dear nephew to really get this on. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. He's played tracks for the Black Keys for me before, and I've liked what I've heard. But the whole thing is, with people like the Black Keys, Jenny O, new artists, the whole thing for me is, as I said, I am kind of used to listening to music that not only I like, but also music that has some kind of a history and some kind of a earth changer and some kind of a legendary magic with it. To just listen to today's music that is maybe good, but at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, rather inconsequential in the big picture, I just can't get as into it. Now, I also want to change and say, there's artists that I like from the past that are also inconsequential. Let me try to be fair there and tell you what I mean. I love Joan Jett. I'm a big Joan Jett fan. Poster right here. Okay, big fan. That's stepping outside the Beatle box. That's harder edge rock and roll. But the thing is, I love Joan, but I realize Joan may be the equivalent of her biggest period in the 80s of what the Black Keys are today. Say, in other words, in the grand scheme of things, not very important like the Stones or Elvis, And I like Little Anthony and the Imperials. Again, this may be a a 1950s or early 60s version of what's something I could think of, something modern today, like, I don't know. I say modern, I don't know I don't know modern groups. Anybody from modern, I mean, this is not, Nine Inch Nails is no longer new, I know that, but I'm saying from the 90s, people from the 90s or 2000s, this is probably the equivalent. So, and Blondie. So, older artists that I like, the Young Rascals, these are all what you might call the lesser, more insignificant artists that fall through the cracks. Look at that. Los Bravos, Black is Black. Okay? And the Monkees. And Gary Puckett, the Union Gap. This could just as well be Jenny O, or the Jenny O of the 1960s, the Black Crowes of the 1960s. Black Keys, Black Crowes, sorry. The White Stripes, is it White Stripes? I don't know, God. But, Cyndi Lauper. I love Cyndi Lauper. This is one of my favorite albums of all time from 1984. That's around the time where I really start losing interest. But, again, is Cyndi Lauper along the lines of an Elvis Presley or Bob Dylan? No. So, I don't have problems listening to people who are what you might call less important, less blockbusters, from the past. But that's the period that I like. What's wrong with us liking different periods? I mean, we all like what we like. My favorite periods of music are 1954 through 1984. I still have a few albums from the late 80s. I have some albums from the 1990s. Now you take a group like this, Kiss. Kiss I have an interest in. Kiss is not really my thing, but I like some songs by them. But the reason I've been getting interested in collecting Kiss albums lately is because Kiss, like what I kind of said about the Stones and the Beatles and Dylan, they kind of have this great aura about them. So when I'm listening to a Kiss record, I feel like I'm listening to something that is also kind of farther reaching, kind of a bigger thing, kind of more relevant and for decades, and kind of like has a reputation and an aura. A couple other points I want to make. I think one of the problems with music today is that music today is very isolated, listening experience. If you're listening to something, you're kind of listening to it by yourself. You discover it by yourself. It's not very communal. When I was a kid, we had the top 40 AM radio stations and FM stations too played out good album rock hits. If there was a new album out, the album rock station would play some tracks off it. So whether it was commercial AM top 40 or less commercial FM, you heard all this stuff. You were in your room doing your homework or whatever, and there's the radio's on, and you heard the new album by whoever it was, whether it was Boston, or trying to think of the new Elton John song, or whatever, or the top 40. That's how you would hear Paul Simon doing 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. You would hear a lot of the 70s stuff, and you were aware of it. And I remember going to the beach very often. My mom would drive us kids to the beach, and she'd have the car radio on, and you'd hear all the big hits, and you'd become... just things that hit me, ABBA or Diana Ross, Love Hangover, whatever was the hits of the day, Paul Simon, the latest song by McCartney and Wings. You heard all this stuff, and you got to know it, and you went out and you bought the 45. Today, people have told me that with new music, there's great stuff out there, they tell me, but you have to look for it. I don't want to look for it, I don't have to look for it. I don't have to go and seek out, I don't know, Tom Schmam's new album, because again, it may be good music, and I don't deny it. I think there's a lot of good music. My nephew has played me a lot of good new rock music that I never knew existed. But the thing is, I'm fine with not knowing about it existing. That's the whole thing. And along those tracks, let me go to my other statement that people say. They say, you got to remember that. How about Elvis Presley was your grandmother's music that she said, oh, don't listen to Elvis Presley. My grandparents might have said, Elvis is disgusting. Elvis is degrading to people, teenagers. Don't, he shakes his hips around, don't listen to Elvis. But he still was singing Love Me Tender, Can't Help Falling in Love. I mean, Elvis, you know, they were wrong about Elvis is what I'm trying to say. Same thing with the Beatles. I always tell a story where I remember playing All You Need Is Love on a 45. And my grandfather, who really was a great man and a nice guy, never got upset about anything. But I remember one time he got upset. I was playing the song All You Need Is Love on a 45. And the end of the record had the Beatles going, love is all you need, love is all you need, love is all you need, love is all you need. And he goes, is that record stuck? Fix that needle over there. You know. So, yeah, I can appreciate what it was like. I'm getting older now myself. I'm like getting like my grandfather, and I don't like new stuff. But here's the difference, and I stand by this with all my heart, okay? The difference is, back then, it was kind of a curse in a way to having been born in 1908. 1907, because you didn't get to enjoy Elvis, the Beatles, the Stones. You missed out, Gramps. If you were a Gramps in the 50s or 60s or 70s, you missed out on a lot of good stuff. The difference is, I don't feel I'm missing out on anything of any substance today. That's the difference. So call me old, call me just like my grandparents, but the difference is, in my time, I'm not missing out on anything that I can't miss out on. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not missing out on some good... There's probably some great songs, right, that just been released in 2014 that I'm not going to hear. But you know what? It's okay. I can live without it, because it's not Elvis, it's not the Beatles, it's not the Stones, it's not Dylan. You know, it's not Johnny Cash, it's not any of the greats. I'm okay with not listening to the latest song by Justin Bieber, the latest song by Kanye West, Lady Gaga, you know, Taylor Swift, the list goes on and on. Oh, there's some good stuff out there? Oh, so too bad for me. I missed a good song here or there, maybe 10 good songs by the... But you know what? None of it has the resonance, none of it has the legendary classic status of the old stuff, and that's just a fact. And a lot of that, I'll admit, is not the fault of the music. It's not the music's fault. It's the sign of the times. I mean, a lot of the reason why, I admit too, so please be aware that I'm admitting it. The Beatles and Elvis and all those people that I said that were so great in the past, a lot of that was because they came along at the right time. The timing was good. But also they were talented. Let's not take that away from them. The Beatles still couldn't have been the Beatles if their music sucked. The music was great, but the timing was also perfect. But it is what it is. You want to say it was also timing? Great, but that's the facts. That's how it happened. You know, a new English band starting up today that didn't start in 1963, you're not going to have the same resonance. And that's just what it comes down to, how I want to kick this in the head in the end of this video. And again, I'm sure I got passionate about this. I'm very passionate about things, this subject. I don't want anybody to get offended. I'm sure people will, but if you're offended, you know what, hell, that's all right, you know. But, you know, you can't please everybody, right? It's just that I'm happy where I am. If I live to be 100 or 90, 80, whatever it is, if I got 20 years, 30 years left, 35, 40 maybe, which is a long time, I can still... There's still a lot of artists that I personally want to discover from my favorite time period, the 50s through the 80s. I have enough stuff that I don't really need to find anything from the 90s, 2000, 2010s. I mean, if something comes along the way, if I happen to hear something, again, if I happen to hear something that I think is good and worth buying, I'm going to buy it. I don't just refuse to buy new music just because it's new. If I hear something good and say, hey, that's a good catchy song, I like that artist or whatever it is, I'll buy it. Just I don't hear much of it. And even if I hear it, even when I do hear it, I don't feel like there's such an urgency to have to get it. Well, that's just me speaking for myself. I'd like to hear your comments. I'm sure I'll get them. It's where I stand. It's no mistake, no surprise that I have a rather mainstream taste, a commercial taste in music. I like a good hit song, but I mean, like for example, with Kiss, I always say, what's my favorite Kiss song out of all the songs I've ever heard from Kiss? I Was Made for Loving You. The hit. Catchy song, good song. But there's offbeat stuff that I like. And would you call, I don't know, would you call, excuse me, would you call Bo Diddley offbeat? I would. You know, Joan Jett, she's got some hits, but would you call her typical pop? No, not necessarily. So anyway, I like a lot of stuff. Just because I don't like the stuff that you like doesn't mean I'm in a bubble. And if I am in a bubble, it's a good place to be. So I'm not in a bubble, but if you consider me being in a bubble, I'm happy in the bubble I'm in.